Good morning. Yesterday in worship, as we continued on with St. Luke's on Broadway, we looked at the musical Footloose. Our reflection song was Let's Hear It for the Boy. It's a fascinating story about that, how Herbert Ross, who was the director of Footloose, had loved a song entitled Somebody's Eyes. It had been written by Tom Snow and by Dean Pitchford. They loved the song. And Herbert Ross loved the song, so much so that he played it all the time before they even went to Utah. Then it was played in Utah where they were filming, and he just played it and played it and played it as a part of the background music, and he played it when they came back to LA to do the editing. In fact, Herbert Ross had played it so much that as they now went into post-production, he said, "I'm sick of it, I want a different song." Well, Dean and Tom were crushed. They loved that song. And it hurt them so bad, but they thought, we've got to do something immediately. They contacted the studio and they said, Tom and I want to have the permission to write another song. And it probably was a real blessing. You see, they were under a time crunch. And had they had a lot of time, Paramount would have probably said, why don't we go look for a celebrity songwriter and artist? But no, there wasn't time. Tom and Dean went to his studio and they began to try to work on a song. It was Dean who had already had the idea of a title of Let's Hear It for the Boy. Tom had already come up with a bass line for another song. They started looking at both of them. They started working and putting them together. They ordered out for food. They kept on working. They worked late into the night. And finally, in the wee hours of the morning, it was done. They had it. They cut a little demo, and the next morning they took it to Herbert Ross and said, we have something for you. Herbert listened to it, and he loved it. He gave him permission to go forward, and so it was then that Dean wrote a second verse, driving back over to Tom's. They finished it all up. It was in no time at all. They had to think about who they wanted to have sing it. They thought of Denise Williams. She was one of the hottest stars going. They managed to get her together to have an appointment, and they played the song for her, and she agreed right then and there that she was willing to sing it. Of course, when the album came out, it turned out that Let's Hear It for the Boy, well, it went to number 1 on the top Billboard 100. It was a huge hit. A year after it had come out, they had lunch with Denise Williams, and she handed them back the lyric sheet that they had given her that day to look at the song. And a year ago, on the top, she had written 1 million, number 1. She knew how great it was going to be, and she was right. Except that it didn't sell 1 million. The album sold 17 million. The soundtrack was a bigger hit than even the movie. And one of the biggest hits was Let's Hear It for the Boy. Isn't it fascinating that Let's Hear It for the Boy made it to number 1 and garnered them an Academy Award, an Oscar nomination? And yet they wouldn't have written it. They wouldn't have written it except that they had this problem and they were so crushed and they were so disappointed. And out of that moment, such incredible success came. It really is how it happens in our life. Because of our faith in Christ, you and I know that we can take the most difficult and hard moments and we entrust them to God to help us to find a new beginning, value, a new way forward. So many good things come about in our lives out of those times that really look like they are the darkest, and the times that we're disappointed, or the times that we are hurt. You know, yesterday in worship, we made the agreement that this week, you and I are going to start every day with a time of devotion and prayer, and the prayer would be a prayer of thanksgiving and gratitude. Rather than starting a prayer with all of our, oh God, please help me, oh God, I need, we're going to start with gratitude and a prayer of thanksgiving. Because when you're full of gratitude, we know that something happens in your heart. You start to feel so grateful for life and you become so full of joy, you have to dance. As we said yesterday from the psalmist, truly it is God who turns our mourning into dancing and clothes us with joy. hope today is a great day of joy. Even in the dark times, know great things can happen. Let's hear it for the boy.